Okay, I'll explain recording in a second. Classic. I have this big poster in front of me, hit records. A couple of words about you to frame this. So yeah, you're an award-winning actress with international acclaim, stations from Berlin, London, New York, and in recent years, Los Angeles, in your very impressive house in Topanga. We just compared mountain views earlier on, and I'm still jealous. Sorry. So you gained an impressive list of IMDb entries as not only an actress, but also as a director, as a writer, producer. So you're really diverse in your activities in the film industry. A couple of titles to drop in, films like Das Leben der Anderen, The Weight of Perfection, The Love Patient, and premiering soon a feature film called Demise. And even totally, which I find so cool, nerdy stuff like Star Wars, fan fiction films. So across the board, you know the business. And yeah, you describe yourself as an artist with a business brain. So that means you're not only CEO of a film production company, Blue Boots Entertainment, but you put your brain to really use for many good deeds, as it were. You've been organizing the Ethos Film Awards. It's a film festival, annual film festival in LA that features purpose-driven films that, I quote, promote peace, diversity, inclusion, and environmental sustainability. For that festival, that's something for your diaries. There'll be a German spin-off very soon in Speyer. And you also do diversity work and things like being active in a non-profit initiative, Women for Women in Film. And you really push these agendas. And yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly about Ethos, was like one of the motivations you mentioned is this is giving back to the industry. This is, I think, something absolutely admirable. Given that, yeah, I don't know, people can turn cynical and egotistic very quickly in a business that is highly competitive and fast-lived. So, yeah, that weren't impressive enough. Combining this with motherhood is quite something. Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks again for making time. And before I get lost in laudations, if it's okay, we can get you started, Annabelle, if you want to yeah, talk a little bit about your career in acting and filmmaking. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so nice to meet you all, and thank you for coming. Yeah, I'm dizzy from everything you said there. Ooh la la. My career started acting, being on the stage for the first time when I was 13 and about to embark in the darkest times in my life. So there was like very bad stuff happening over here, and then being for the first time on stage, and that was kind of like my rescue, because I had a outlet for my troubled emotions and also for my very inquisitive brain. I was very lucky that the play that we did was like a Jean-Paul Sartre, and it was super dark, and it was not organized by the school, it was organized by the philosophy students. So it was like older people there, and we really were just focused on the message rather than who is going to get the lead part, who, you know, like auditioning. No, it was like philosophy students coming together saying, we're going to do a play, we're going to explore philosophy from the inside out and perform it. So thank the heavens that happened to me, because I knew instantly this is what I want to do. And then we have this beautiful theater in Speyer, the Kinder- und Jugendtheater. That's how I met Mr. Mesh, because we worked together, and he was part of the directing team of an original play that had a similar, you know, beauty and sacred purpose to it, because it was written for what was going on through teenagers' minds at the time, and the way us as the actors were allowed to explore the depth of the characters. It was just like a really transformative, beautiful experience. And the team in the theater was wonderful. I toured, and then I decided I want to go to drama school after I already had pretty much everything that actors usually dream of from early on, including assistant direction. I was the lovely theater director at the Kinder- und Jugendtheater Speyer allowed me to be an assistant director at a very early age. And I also noticed there, oh my goodness, I know exactly what's wrong. And I know exactly what to say in a nice way. So the actor has joy in thinking about it, and the penny drops and he can execute it, or she. And also ideas to how the stage design should look. For example, there was a play called Kinderdämmerung, and I said, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if we had these gigantic building blocks for little children? And we like rearrange them, and that will be the stage design. And those wonderful people allowed this 15-year-old with her idea to execute that. And I was able to see it come alive with enough like-minded people in the room, and means to get the company to build the blah blah blah. Amazing experience. And then the move to Berlin, went to drama school, and got a flavor of the German on a national level flavor, what it's like to do this, to commit 3 years to it in a private drama school, but staatlich anerkannt, as we say. And to give up my university degree in exchange for that, and not really knowing what effects that would have, moving shortly after that to England. Before I moved to England, I realized that theater on a national level, where you tour throughout the country, wouldn't 100% be my path, because I found it very toxic. Sorry to say, but I didn't like it, because there was a lot of politics going on about the leading roles, and I saw things like this, just like in a silly little horror movie, where girls, with needles would pick each other, and the drama and the rumors and the I didn't like it. And I also didn't like there was a heavy party infusion, with a lot of drinking, where people had to sit up until late nights. And I was part of that, I admit it, but I knew that this is not sustainable, to be in that nightlife kind of like political and like sleeping around. I don't know if I can say that, but it was very, the boundaries, professional boundaries were so blurred, and I knew this is gonna kill me if I'm gonna just do theater in Germany on a high level, wanting to do it on a high level. So I thought maybe I'm going to do TV or film. And I got luckily discovered right after I was wondering if that might be better, by Thomas Jahn, who did Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is like a German cult classic. And he gave me a lead part in a television episode. It wasn't like the great art that I was set out, to do, but I loved the format. It was very professional, and the pay was great, because there was another thing, right? Once you're in the middle of theater life, you really have to fully focus on that to then one day maybe have a family. So the film and television life was very easygoing and fulfilling and lovely. And then I met my husband at the time, my now ex-husband, and he was living in England. And I was thinking, now I'm doing this in Germany. Maybe I should do this in England, as this is blossoming, or at least in English-speaking countries, because I think German actors have a very good education. We go all out in the Greek classic storytelling and this and that. It's very deep. And I was always missing more German actors in English-speaking films. So we decided, let's move to London. And then I understood immediately why German actors are not being cast more often, because nobody cares about where you went to school. The system is totally different, because as soon as you're outside of Germany, it's not about the government having all those state-funded beautiful stages and TV production and movie productions. No, it's all about selling tickets. And suddenly it's all about the business. And the stage design looks bad. Nobody, with an accent, you're already done. And if you didn't go to those specific schools where the tunnel is built for you, the pipeline for you to be in the union, there's a different union in Germany to the union in England. So you have to start from scratch. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't like whining and I don't like sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. I'm going to do my piece, but I'm not going to start from scratch. I'm going to do the next best thing that I can do that's new to me and that's fulfilling as a storyteller. And I started writing in that transition time. And I came to understand that I really love it. And as I was getting into the writing roles for women with a German accent, not directly, but I was thinking, I'm going to write roles for outsiders like me that I could potentially play, that are weirdos, you know, that coming. And so all these quirky, humorous scripts, and also some dark, you know, horror stuff, where there's a transcension of your age or looks or where you come from. So I noticed I really enjoy writing. And then I booked indie movies. And then the opportunity came to move to New York, like just at the time where I was like, oh, I think I'm going to get a good handle here on England and London. I get really nice friends here, industry friends, work is starting to come together. But what about America? What about Hollywood? Now we have an opportunity to go to New York. Maybe you should consider it. And boom, my ex and I, we said, maybe we should explore it. And he got a job offer 2 weeks later after we spoke it out. And the condition to take the job was to move fast and pack it in fast. And we were like, I think we're ready. I think this is for us. Let's go. So we packed it in, moved to New York. And there knowing, okay, this is going to be a start from scratch as well for me, what I'm going to do this time. Instead of being surprised by that, I was ready for, I'm going to do a new thing here as well. What would I like to explore in New York? Okay, Broadway is big in New York. And even though I want to focus on film as an actor, I think it would be great to direct, to just land in New York and direct. So I was looking for directing opportunities on stage, because that's easier to do, obviously, than in film. And there was a competition, Anatomy of Love, and for all people to submit a proposal and an idea. And the submitters would have to write their own 40-minute adaptations of the famous Shakespeare classics. And on that list of the plays, like Romeo and Juliet, blah, 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 was Macbeth. And I was like, Anatomy of Love in Macbeth. Where's the love in that? I'm going to find out. I'm going to take Macbeth and I'm going to put a proposal together and write a 40-minute adaptation, and I'm going to submit it. And I got the gig. So I directed a super wacky, I shouldn't say wacky, German style, super technical version. And I acted in it as well, because the acting part is always, you know, the origin that if I can honor it, I try to integrate it without pushing it in. So I did a 40-minute version where I had Lady Macbeth 1 and Lady Macbeth 2, Macbeth 1, Macbeth 2. And there was a mirror in the room, and I had a choreography where the Macbeth 1, Macbeth 2 were looking at each other and mirroring everything to the T. So it looked like a mirror reflection. And I split the dialogue in the voice of the ego and the voice of the healthy human mind. Because if you go through the script, you can literally, there's like the little angel and the little devil talking to each other in the dialogue. And I split it visually, and it worked beautifully. So I won the big award. It went through many rounds. And then this little beautiful Israeli actress came to me after the show, after I won the final award. You need to direct our Stanislavski Strasbourg thesis. And I'm like, okay. And so I got my next gig. I directed the next thing. And that was not initiated by me. That came through that. And that was wonderful. What we did to Weinstein in the in the American Theater for Actors. And then I started booking film stuff as I was, you know, maturing on the off-Broadway stages, which is, there's off-Broadway in New York, which is kind of like low budget, and there's off-Broadway that's I think up to 200 seats and it's serious, and then you have Broadway, which is all the movie stars, big dollar productions and like the playbill. So just as I was getting to the ceiling of the off-Broadway world, I started booking movie stuff, and I had a great agent who discovered James Dean, and I never could do the jobs because I was stuck in the theater, because I was committed. You can't just not go to general rehearsal because you have a 2-day movie gig, so you have to say, sorry, I can't do it. And so I thought, maybe the time has come to really nail down where the journey is supposed to go. And so I decided, I think I do want to do film. And then I discussed with my ex, maybe we should think about going to California, because in New York, you always have the stage and the film clash. And it's hard for me to make a choice because I would pick art over, like lucrative and more, whatever, mainstream. And so same thing with New York happened. We spoke it out. Literally 2-3 weeks later, they offered me a job in Los Angeles. And we're like, okay, obviously there's a system that we have to follow. Let's do it. So we did the same thing. We packed it in New York, moved to LA, and then started a small production company that could, because I knew this is the last piece. I know I'm a producer at heart as well, but there were certain things that I didn't really 100% know, like copyright, optioning, IP, budgeting, scheduling. I just knew I wanted to know that side, and hence the film production company. And I studied at UCLA Extension, and I was very selective with the professors. I was always looking who is currently working in the industry, because I don't want to have a mummy teaching me, right, who has like retired 25 years ago and doesn't know anymore how it works. I want somebody currently working in the industry who then can be my mentor. And if I sit in the front row and A+, they're going to remember me. And that's exactly what happened. So my teacher in line producing was Paul Hellerman. He was the line producer of Pulp Fiction and whatnot. And there I was, A+. And in the end of the course, I went like, Mr. Hellerman, can I ask you a question? Are you theoretically hireable for a movie if I put a movie together? And he said, you don't want to hire me because you have yourself now. You're like, you got this. I'm like, that's great. And so I focused on the producing part because, the wanting to have a family and children as a woman and as a man, is a theme. And because the entertainment industry is so dependent on so many vague outer circumstances and often, sadly, luck, I knew this would be a 10-year journey, and that's exactly what it was. That's when I started the production company, and around 10 years later was when there was the first time a space even for a baby, because my biggest nightmare was always, okay, now I'm in the midst of it. I booked the big movie, and now I can't work for the next 6 years because I want to be with kids. That doesn't mean you cannot work at all, but if you're at the height of your career and then you have babies, you're gone for a little bit because you may want more than one child, and you don't want to outsource the child to a nanny right away, because what's the point? At least that's my personal opinion. So the producing was a very good means to me, where I felt like instead of going as a beggar, I go in the C-suite and become a doer. Somebody who kickstarts stuff, who has autonomy to be free in creating in whatever capacity as a storyteller, and that served me very well. And then so I've been doing everything through that. I was able to act, to write, direct, not the big famous things. I believe personally that my journey is only beginning right now. I honestly feel this. We'll see in about 10 years time also as an actress, because I haven't landed the big role, but I had opportunities, and I had to turn down opportunities because there was the casting couch. The casting couch is real, it exists. And I actually brought it on myself looking back, where I was like, I want to see that dirty scumbag. Who has the guts to try that on with me, because I'm going to kick him in the balls. But it doesn't work this way, sadly. It works in a way of grooming, of reeling people in and giving them the shiny golden thing, the role with Harrison Ford, a leading role with Harrison Ford, to have and to hold. But then let's talk about the other thing. What do you mean the other thing? And then you're like, oh, wow. I had that experience, and it was very painful to let that go, because I couldn't do it. And I know people are faced with this in the industry in both directions, and some go for it, some offer it. It is the way and means. I noticed in the theater world already how effective it is to blur those professional boundaries. But I gladly let it go, because it led me to being really clear with the path and the integrity that I want to follow. And yeah, here we are. And I have a film festival to bring people in the room that are like-minded, that I can choose and build the program. And a lot of projects come about. I'm involved in a few of the projects. So it's not just giving back, it's more understanding sustainability, where you have a well that overflows, and out of the well that overflows that I'm creating, that overflow comes back to me. It's really beautiful to be authentic and focused on what's right for you, and it eventually really comes together. So I'm excited about everything ahead, and yeah, I feel like I only just begun.
Going on.
Yeah.
And maybe something that could be interesting to elaborate a little bit. A student was interested that you mentioned vague outer circumstances, things like luck and I don't know, diverse strategies. What's your experience with that? And maybe also, I mean, I think that can nicely tie into what you said about your good position in organizing film festivals. It works almost a little bit like an agency, you know, you bring people together, and then what we call karma, you know, it falls back to you, absolutely. So people remember you in a positive way. This might not be an option for everybody, but what could you see in terms of, what do you have any experiences from an infrastructural perspective, how to make these vague circumstances a little bit different, or do you have some, I don't know, thoughts or feelings about this?
Absolutely, 100%. So with vague outer circumstances, I mean, it's actually the result of a flawed education system for artists, quite frankly, because we are very good at educating the artist, but we are not teaching the artist to sell the art. So what you're actually breeding is the breadless artist that we know from the, old classics. When Schiller was heartbroken that his dad forced him to study law. Was it Schiller? I don't know, but you know the story, where you have to do law first or business. And that's a man's world thinking. And there's a good gender point, because I do believe that we need a renaissance in the art schools where business is half of the pie, not zero. If we would start with 25, because when I went out of drama school, I didn't know anything about agencies. I didn't know anything about networking, about what the resume needs to look like, what events I need to go to, what unions I need to join, what the rights are, nothing. It was just like the art of acting. And guess what? Talent in an artist's career is 10%. The rest is knowing how to sell it and how to stay on the case, to not die of a broken heart, literally. Because we all are born artists in the end of the day, right? We, as kids, we play all the time. And then you have some that really get, I don't know, they experience this on another level. But art is, if you don't know how to bring it to your audience, you're done for. You're done for, because then you're dependent on your looks. Guess what? Looks change, right? And then even when you're looking great, yeah, then you have to fight against the stigma of being the pretty dumb one. The same counts for men, by the way. I just talked to Matthias that I'm meeting with our lead actor, who looks like Superman, super handsome, very smart, lovely, but he doesn't get good parts because people want to cast him as a dummy because he just looks too good. So looks is not even a thing. Yeah, so the vague circumstances, I feel people need to be taught how to bring themselves to an audience and how to understand the market, because it is an industry in the end of the day. And us in the German speaking realms where we have, you know, like the GEZ, and we have like state funds, which is beautiful for the art because we can be much freer because we don't have to sell tickets. But the downside to it is that the actor becomes a cog in the machine and is not really a participant in the storytelling part. It's only in a small capacity. When I think about auditioning for drama schools back then, like I was auditioning for the Ernst Busch Schule, and their comment in their denial of me was, there was nice, good voice and talent, but I'm the director. That's what the guy told me. I'm the director. Because I had I did not just say the monologue, I had a whole like concept behind it. And I thought, looking back, I think that is so sad that we don't make, you know, that we take it in such small pieces and break the artists apart. And, you know, in drama school, it's also about breaking the person. To be what? Like a submissive zombie? I much rather, instead of breaking them, I make them so full and so versatile and so educated about all layers that they always have a choice in actively doing something. So when I'm saying vague circumstances, I think the heavens was never really in the position to be dependent, because my autopilot was always straight going to, I don't like being a sheep in a long line waiting for luck to drop on my head. What can I do as a storyteller to tell the stories that I think are important, the stories that heal, the voices that need to be heard? I always had that in me, the appreciation and respect for the sacred act of storytelling. And that came because that was my beginning in philosophy, you know, because it's not about a vanity show. It's about the sacred, healing, holy act of storytelling, where you create a vision for society. This is huge. This is not, oh, she's prettier, she's too tall. I haven't gotten roles because I'm too tall, you know, because the other actor was too small and they didn't want to put him on apple boxes. So nice one, right? This is not a career. This is nonsense. If you're just dependent on those outer vague circumstances, like your height, you know, how often you go to the gym, all this vanity nonsense. This is a small grain in the whole package of being an artist. And so with the vagueness with the film festival, what I can do as well, because I experienced how amazing it is when you meet the people that go above and beyond for no reason to help you, because, you know, I believe in a balance in life. And with the abuse, you also find randomly supporters. And I'm really so fulfilled by creating that for others, where we eliminate vague circumstances by talking about the topics, right? The themes. That's why ethos is purpose-driven. We transcend those classic boundaries between the gods on the screen and the vermin in the audience. You know, where we create this illusion. No, we actually talk about the message of the film, and the creators come together with the audience. And, you know, there's pieces that the audience has that are so valuable for the creator. And that happens when we have a Q&A. You know, there's not like, oh, fame and the starstruck thing. No, there's somebody sitting in the audience. You know, I lost my child too to heroin addiction. That happened to me too, and I did that and that. And the creator starts crying, sitting there saying, thank you for sharing. And it's real. It's real. And that's, in my opinion, you know, if you focus really on why you're doing this, and if the answer is not because of fame, fortune, and nonsense, then you can eliminate those vague circumstances, because you're not playing that game.
Okay, thank you. That's super interesting. And I had a comment on that on the side in the chat as well. I mean, coming from a European continental tradition, this, you know, the artsy and the vendors type of Fassbinder thingy. That's a really entrenched discourse, and in drama as well, and other art form productions. Now, what you tell me about business connections, quite interesting, because we tend to think that, you know, you lose your artistic vision over that and become like a business shark and focus on the finance only, to the dismay of the product. But it seems to be your experience that this is rather mutually reaffirmative thing, where you then only start focusing on the good stuff, as it were.
Yeah. I think the word business is stigmatized, and it's like, I don't know, we have all these misconceptions because you bet Fassbender and Wim Wenders and all of them are amazing business people, because otherwise they wouldn't have gone there, because I don't think they had to sleep around, excuse my language, to get to where they were. They were like, they were fully and are fully activated, full 360 human beings who are so focused on the passion for the storytelling that they understand that understanding the market is a absolutely natural part of art life. That's why they were successful in their journey, had this amazing aura around them. And I believe authenticity brings the understanding for the business part naturally, but we've been ingrained, like it's ingrained that it's a different thing, but it's not. If your passion is strong enough for wanting to tell stories, the penny drops very fast. But sadly, because you're taught in schools that no, the actor has to be broken. And I heard people even say the actor is not allowed to be too smart. I kid you not.
Yeah.
Where drama teachers said a smart actor is a bad actor. And I said, I refuse to believe that. It's just the wrong methods, because it is like being open and available. A smart actor can be available too. You just have to find different tools to get the actor there.
If it's okay, Annabelle, having a look at the time, I'd like you maybe to steer a little bit before we open up to the general Q&A. To this idea of gender participation structures. I mean, in the course, in this pro-seminar, we haven't really talked much about film yet. There are more texts to come. Had a look at the UNESCO report, and there's good research material, and I think this would relate to women, for women in film. I just have the data here for the statistics we have for the top 100 Hollywood films 2019. 10.7% female directors, 19.4 writers, 24 producers. In streaming, interestingly, from San Diego, the newest report, 22, late 22, double directors, so 22 directors. For writers, producers, the same low participation rate. And then, of course, casting directors, 70% female. Any thoughts and ideas, or what's your experience? Why is this so gendered? I mean, I forgot to mention soundtrack. You know, I'm a bit more affectionate towards music making things. Soundtrack composers, 9% only female. You know, it's practically a guy's job composing for film, and there's nothing intrinsic about this, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. So with the directors, I can tell you straight up, it's because of the babies. It's because of family, because think about it. It's not about when you have your first child. It's about when you have your last child, plus at least 2 or 3 years, unless you outsource them. And that's a really hard choice to make, because you know that the first 7 years are the formative years. If you're an artist, if you are a director, you know how important it is what you surround a child with. So you know you don't want to give them to a stranger all day long, because you're on set all day. It's grueling. It's not just shooting, it's pre-production. Pre-production is grueling. It's like 12, 15-hour days. You're gone. You're gone. So you either have to have a stay-at-home dad, and if you're a very driven woman and you have like a not so driven male, that can already cause trouble, because it's a very dangerous industry for a director to be in dream bubble land and getting all the praise and the glory. So that can cause interrelational dynamics that are very toxic, where a guy feels like, oh, she's gone with all these famous actors, and you do all the dirty, I don't know. I just know it from my experience. There was not even a question for me to say, you know what, when we have baby, I don't care. I'm going to just go for my career. It just feels so, why have a baby then? Right? Because I want to be there. I want to be the person that they look up to. For me, it's more important to be that for those little people instead of just going after the business. And then I think most of the people just don't get back on the horse, because life changes within those 7 to 10 years, right? People change their appearance, people lose hope, people get fully, they blossom in parenthood, they find a different interest, they start writing a novel, I don't know. So they lose track if it's not hot enough, or they get depressed as well, because that can happen, where they think, oh, now I'm old. We have this old mass hypnosis going on as well, where you're like, oh, you're over 30, I don't like it, I don't subscribe to it, that's why I keep on going. But many do. Many do. I lost my looks. I can't stand when people have that self, destructive opinion, but I see at the same time where it comes from. It's like hammered in the head nonstop.
I see. Thanks. And if it's okay, I mean, we could open already to, open Q&A. I would have a follow-up, because Frances McDermott's inclusivity riders, but that's something maybe at a later point, because she withdrew that. I mean, that could be a structural thing. Call me naive. But I see Sandra has raised her hand, a colleague. Yeah, so if that's okay with everybody, we could now move to, and mostly with you, of course, Annabelle, we could move to the open Q&A. And yeah, I try to keep stuff together, but yeah, Sandra, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matthias. Annabelle, thank you so much for your talk. It is really interesting to hear your experiences in this industry. I have a follow-up to what you just said. I'm wondering, because I'm teaching the introduction to gender studies, and a couple of my students are here today. So I kind of feel I have to stay on topic that Matthias just introduced us to. I'm wondering if you see a change in the structures of this film industry in general, especially since maybe Me Too, but also in relation to parenting and how it is perceived in the industry. And I don't know if that's a good example, but I know Shonda Rhimes is at the forefront of bringing, motherhood or parenthood closer to, being kind of able to integrate that into a job that is as demanding as yours is. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts on that.
100% agree with everything you just said. A big game changer was the Me Too movement, for sure, because there has been no industry where you don't have like a harassment policy, where, no, this is how it works. This is how the game works, was the system before we put really strong harassment disclaimers, courses into place. And that started with the Me Too movement. It was the way the business was run. It was highly abusive, and when we hear prostitute actor is so close together, it was foreign to me initially, but then it became more and more clear, because it happened so very, very often. It still happens, and there's participation from both sides, because there's offers as well. It's not just the abuse. It's also like, I received it as a producer, where people think I'm a guy and they put in offers, like, hey. And so what I think is really also the game changers is women in leadership. Very important that women are not just the pretty objects. They are fully accomplished whole people that run their lives and craft, right, as a fully accomplished person. And that confidence and that open space now to succeed as a leader and to start own businesses, I think there's more support there as well, especially for women. That is so helpful, because it is then the women who build the pipelines for themselves, right? Like me creating Women for Women in Film, because we have women in film, and I don't want to talk bad about them, but I was like, where is the actual support for women? Where we say, hey, how can I help you? That's what we need, you know, that thinking, because we know we have a different path. We need a little extra support for those 10 years if you want to have a family, to stay in the game, to create a support system for childcare, to have opportunities to bring them to set. Yeah, but it comes usually from women because they are sitting in that situation. So supporting women in becoming leaders is the hot topic for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Can I latch onto that? And then there's some question in the chat. And please, everybody, just type questions or raise your hands, however you want to make use of that. Annabelle, you Women for Women in Film, how does that then work? Do you give workshops? Do you do union work? Do you information, education? It'd be super interesting to hear what's on offer there.
Yeah, we are a receptacle for anybody who wants to support women in the industry, and we support them. Like, for example, this year we have a lady who contacted us who wants to support a female researcher about Khalil Gibran and Mary Haskell. Perfect for us. So we said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give your writer the Writer in Residence Award of the year, and if you donate the prize money for this person, could we set up a better platform to help this lady instead of, you know, lingering on that low level? Boom, give her a real platform. We're going to integrate her in the program. In the 2023 Santa Monica, she's flying in. We're going to present her work. This is what we do. People who reach out to us because they want to support females, and sometimes they come with ideas. Sometimes they just spend money, donate money, and we give it to a worthy, and all women in the industry are worthy. Sometimes we pay female staff in the festival, you know, where we can get an extra person, because anything literally helps to advance people's careers. We really look at the credits as well that we give. We never give, I'm so anti-volunteer, because if you have somebody showing up as their full self with all their heart and soul and contacts and everything, I said, dude, you need a title that represents your participation here. And most of the time people are too humble. They are too shy. They just want to have the low level, the lowest of the lowest. And it's my job as a supporter of women to say, no, go straight to the top. What are you waiting for? Credit, here you go. You did the work, take it, be happy, and promote it around you, that you don't have to be the bottom feeder.
Yeah, thanks. Also, representational politics. It's maybe super naive to mention that, but in a discussion in the seminar, we really had that thing, who's watching, you know, titles at the end of the films, as it were. We don't even notice how askew things are, as it were. I mean, we see the surface work, you know, representation of kind of in this fictional realm, but the whole structures behind that in terms of who does what and for what. Yeah, I mean, do it for the exposure. Thanks. That's completely different field. There's one contribution in the chat, if that's okay, that steers a little bit in a different direction, but I just read that. If you want to, we could have a look at that. Thank you for your time. You were just talking about the looks. Is the industry really that bad that so many people feel obligated to optimize, in inverted commas, their looks with beauty treatments and surgeries? So is it really difficult to stay grounded in this industry? No?
Yes, yeah, it is. It is. And I'm not saying it's all bad and it's all like that, but it's at least the large, it's a large half. There's also the really, really different people, but usually the nasty is always loud. And it's always, you know, the negative stuff. You feel much more like you feel the knife going in your chest much more than the peace around you, right? Because peace and joy is usually pretty quiet and invisible. We have both in the industry, and sadly the toxic stuff is like little knives going in people's heads and brains, and we have that in the industry too, right? So the loud stuff influences people, and if you're not really grounded within yourself, knowing who you are, you buy into that, because you then, you know, nobody is perfect. People wonder, oh, and people have desires, and when you have a dark day and you think, oh, it's because I'm getting old, you know, then maybe you go and have that Botox and the surgery and this and that. Yeah, we promote that. Like a large chunk of the industry promotes that super toxic, unhealthy image of especially women. So sad, but I don't know why. Maybe I'm on the spectrum. I'm not, it just doesn't work on me. I can't stand it. I smell it from afar. I want nothing to do with it. I rather have a little and slow than everything at once, and I'm sick to death.
Well, no, I don't think there's anything gender studies course day. I think you discussed just the a film about, you know, objectification, brainwashed, and that fully addresses that. Yeah, and I think it's also what you say, like the negativity jumps at us much more. It's much more palpable than, yeah.
It hurts. You feel it when it hurts, rather than
Yeah.
feeling fine. You know,
Yeah.
like everything's normal.
Yeah, everything's peaceful. We have another question in the chat that is going in the direction of abuse in terms of selection processes. I just read that. Abuse can be in the selection process by industry gatekeepers, or job promotion, role assignments, payment ratios, even in professional acknowledgements for our performance. In your opinion, where is that single point that women should aim at to crack this unequal and balanced structure in the creative industry?
Self-worth, you know, because for whatever reason, like that, when I came to New York and was in the audition line for a non-union role in a Broadway play, and it was snow, and the line was going all around the house, and it was early in the morning, I thought, this is truly dehumanizing. And the roles that people were lining up for were to jump in when a union actor wouldn't show up. So the chance of anyone in that line in the snow, freezing, to have like a non-speaking part, and I just found that was a profound experience for me, where I'm saying, I'm out. For what? For what? I want to go in as the person who I am. I want to be going in through the appropriate entrance, right? So it's the most important thing. If you want to bust the system or the stigma, bust your own system and stigma, be your own CEO, you know, of your own life, and you will represent yourself as such when you go to places, in the places that are not for you, where people love being mistreated. Stay far away from it. And then once you start doing that, you develop a really good intuition for the right kind of people, and there's a magnetism that starts forming, where you suddenly have, you know, it might be a lonely world. I always describe it as, you know, there's one person on that mountaintop, one person on that mountaintop, so rare. But you know what? We can see each other from afar, that we are like-minded spirits. And once you have two like-minded spirits that are good at heart come together, it's more powerful than literally 1,000 people who have given their souls up just to be famous, or for the little 15 minutes of whatnot. It's actually great. You develop a discernment for who to hang out with and who not, and then that can be really powerful, because actually you don't want too many people in the mix there either, because then you get distracted. It develops its own dynamic if you focus on valuing yourself and representing yourself wherever you go. And if you feel, oh, that doesn't feel right, then don't go there.
Thank you. It's super interesting in terms of what you said about storytelling earlier on. You know, this is, I mean, by means of analogy, Donna Haraway's storytelling for earthly survival type of thing. We're so used to this kind of conflict, destruction stories. we need to think in other narrative patterns in order to not like what you just say this, yeah, somebody else is going to do it. If you as a union person fall through, people are lining up in the cold, but yeah, nobody shows up. Yeah, and the work of unions then, can I, there's somebody in the chat, but sorry to step in and be so dominant. I know, I mean, from limited experience in Germany, VG Award, you know, they publish all the price lists, you know, what rates, because if you trained at a school, nobody tells you, it's like you can ask for this much, or that's what you do. And particularly also in cases of, I don't know, if somebody is mounting towards some abusive situations, you're left on your own devices. Is that dealt with in terms of educational structures, or?
Now it is. Thank the
Yeah.
heavens, now it is, because the unions really upped their game and producers have to do anti-harassment courses. So there's a clear promotion before you get started on a movie. You got to do this course. Everybody watched it. Everybody knows what's going to happen to you if you overstep those boundaries. So it has gotten a lot better for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Still happens though, because as I said, there's Angebot und Nachfrage. What is it? The demand and supply,
Yeah,
right? And if the supply still comes, hey, let's go to the club. That's still happening.
Yeah. Just one eye on the chat. There's a longer bit. I just read that to you. And thanks everybody for bringing in questions and comments. That's really nice. So somebody's asking, what are your thoughts on the increased diversity in the business that cause a huge backlash on the actors and actresses, with numerous examples? News being Ariel, also the amount of female superheroes in Marvel movies caused such controversy. Do you think that some people just have to accept that the business is getting slowly more diverse, or do you think that the current strategy is progressing too fast?
Well, we call it the pendulum, right? So when the pendulum swings in the other direction, it has to go all the way before it goes back. And I think it is going to extremes at the moment, but at the same time, it's also great because it needed to, right? Because, for example, I'm such a big fan of people from the handicapped community, right? So in the Ethos Film Festival, we're trying to just put all the movies in the regular schedule, have people mix and mingle and make business connections. And then you have like James Keach watching the Down syndrome person's movie, and then is totally surprised when he knows he just cried because of somebody who was like handicapped and usually wouldn't have a shot. Or there's a paraplegic actor asking questions and can almost not speak to Cindy Cowan, the producer of Traffic. Turns out he has a movie, right? And everybody thinks, oh, this is going to be hard to watch because we can't understand him. But the guy is a fully activated artist, and he took care of us and our prejudice, and he made a movie that works with him in the lead, and he's getting all the support because we included him. So that stuff is super exciting. I don't think it would have been that easy to connect people like 10 years ago where there would have been a hesitancy than to actually really give them jobs after that. I see all these movies popping out at the moment where there's, you know, a very fluid casting of people with disabilities. I love that because the authenticity in that particular community is mind-blowing. The stories they have, and it was about time to really just have it completely included. And we are at the beginning of that, but I foresee that this will be a really great integration. Diversity, yeah, I'm a little bit more in the leaning back, observing position. I think you should never change history. I think that's where it's going too far for me, where with the casting, I know like the ethnicity has been switched around for politics. I don't like the idea of mixing politics. And I do know that we have in business, you know, we have those little boxes to tick, and that people just for the heck of ticking boxes, this is not because they want to do something great. It's because they know they get funding. That I find a little, but then again, I know it will eventually normalize more, and we had a great achievement in the end of the day. And as long as people who are not agreeing with what's going on stay civil, polite, and professional, I think we can all work it out together, whatever our different opinions are.
Yeah, thank you for that detailed answer. I think, yeah, we've room for maybe one or two more if with any takers. I mean, with the ticking boxes you mentioned, do you think, I mean, you practically answered that already. Is that kind of a current thing that's happening because people see new opportunities? I mean, I think back this Frances McDormand inclusivity rider thingy, which she withdrew very fast, you know. I mean, the original claim, if I remember correctly, was like, we need these rider and contracts, every production needs to be inclusive, kind of equal part split. And then she sorely started regretting that for some somewhat pragmatic, in inverted commas, reasons. But I mean, I don't know, keep that running for a couple of years and stuff is normalized. I mean, what you tell me now about, you know, diverse communities, it's a matter of getting used to stuff is normal, period.
Yeah. And you also must think about, because it's storytelling, right? You don't want to have, it's the opposite of public policy and infringement and the government telling you what to do, or funding, that there's like, yeah, you can tell the story of Snow White, but she has to be African American and has to have a missing leg. This is where it's like, just because you want to get that funding, where's the free storytelling happening at this point? That's a little bit, you know, where there's a clash, and I see that, and unhappiness, because why not create a new story where you have the African American with the missing leg, and you can have a different twist, you can take the gist of the story, but you don't have to, it's like, I had a friend, just as an example, who wanted to win an Academy Award. And so he was a data analyst in a previous life. So he analyzed all the movies that won Academy Awards. And so he created a script based on the algorithm. It was the worst movie I've ever seen. It was the worst movie I've ever seen. It looked beautiful, but it had a Nazi story, a gay story, a bullying story. It was so contrived, because it's the opposite from art. Art comes from the inside and blossoms, and like the story comes out, not the story is outside and you try to like put it into a Academy Award. You know, it's like the thinking is like back to front. Doesn't make sense to me, but I know it will eventually be that sacred process again, where not the outer restrictions decide how it needs to be done.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody raised their hand.
Absolutely. Wonderful question. I think we are at the outskirts of what's bearable with like the changing history. When it comes to changing history, there's, you know, the passionate desire to make the world a better place, but you can never achieve that by changing the atrocities of the past, right? Because we're taking that then away, and then we're missing that piece of information. So I believe, you know, Bridgerton is a beautiful example because it has a fantasy feel to it. And I believe that people, they are at the limits of what's bearable when it comes to rewriting history, and it will eventually be a much more colorful landscape with more original content that's clearly creating something new, rather than lying about the facts of the past. And I think people slowly getting there. Great question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Any more takers before we closing this session? Maybe, do you find it too cheesy to ask you that so cheesy, uplifting ending? Kind of tips and recommendations. I mean, you brushed against that already a little bit. For, I don't know, aspiring artists and their participation in, you know, business endeavors and industries, be that filmmaking or music or something else.
Yeah, I got a super tip. Never buy into the bullshit. Can I say that in a talk like this? Never buy into the negative narrative that takes your hopes and dreams away, because that's all you have in the end of the day. And what you can think here, you can create in real life. How it comes together, how long that takes, what it looks like is a different story. But never let outside nonsense defeat you. Don't collect these one-liners. You're never gonna, oh, this is not, oh, you should never collect any of this. And I know we are susceptible because we're like people that are, you know, change every second. But don't take it on. You can like, oh, you can feel the little sting, but then you can also put it back and say, that's not me. I want to be happy. I want to be at peace. I want to make choices instead of being pushed around. And never, ever, ever give up hope or lose your joy, you know, your inner joy, because you can be a creator. There's all these different tools like writing. You don't need a contract to sit at home and write what's important to you. And you can be proud, just you and yourself, you know, the two of you. Just be proud of that you're doing something to express yourself, because that's why we're here for. I'm sure you know the song, Are We Humans or Are We Dancers? And I always believe that we are dancers because we have that gift and we should exercise it, and feel so blessed that we have that, and not buy into any negative nonsense.